So let's get into it. And, let's think about, why are we here? That's the main question. Why are we here? What is our purpose? And everybody thinks that, we have this purpose on earth and that we are supposed to be here for a reason, like a reason that benefits society. So people say, I was born to be a cop. I was born to be an actor. I was born to play ball, so on and so forth. Talked about this before. So human beings have been on this planet long before societies was invented, long before any of these things was invented. So obviously that's not the case. So we have to look at it. We have to look at it and say, we wasn't put here to benefit, the world or benefit society and so on and so forth, things that existed after man. So the average person lives between, 65 and 110 years. Most people drop out in their 70s, 80s. But on average, we see that lifespan between 65 and 110 years. You got a few people that's over 110 living right now. So in that range, that's a short amount of time. It's short. And we live that long for what? So our bodies are temporary. So what benefit do we have, or why would you create such a complex thing to exist for a short amount of time? So we have to understand we wasn't created to benefit our flesh or to benefit the planet, because the planet has existed long before human beings. It's been here. The animals have been here and they existed long before us. So we wasn't put here to benefit the planet or benefit those beings. So clearly we were obviously put here to benefit our soul, our spirit. It's not about this life. It's about the afterlife. And our time here is here to benefit that. So you have to really start to think and contemplate what we're seeing and everything that's been taking place around us and how we fit in. Because when you start to study that, it's like human beings, we don't fit in, and the planet would be just fine without us. We know our bodies are just vehicles for our souls, and that these are temporary, and that there's a symbiotic relationship between the soul and the body. And that's something that we can prove, this energy that we have. And we're here and we're trying to figure this thing all out, but there's so much history to get into when we start to look into it. But the biggest thing is, when you start to understand the brain, the mind, how complex we are as human beings, all this complexity for what? To benefit what? To build stuff that is temporary for us to go on and on. To what end? For what meaning? What purpose? What's the point? Understand, we're going to get into this heavy in this video to get you really into the understanding of us being here and to answer a lot of obvious questions, but to really make you guys understand that, full circle, that video and how depressing it is, that there's a bigger part to it that you got to understand and just think about. Either you're going to accept it or you won't. And if you accept it, then you'll feel a lot better about going forward. If you don't accept it, then, you're going to have a lot more questions. But you'll get to a point when studying all this where you're going to know. You're going to know. And all you really, once you know, you're going to be looking for validation. You ever have a feeling that something is wrong or something is going on? Women have that intuition. Something is wrong. You're not supposed to act on it until you can confirm it. And then when you confirm it, you was like, I knew it all along. I can feel it. You're going to feel that, but you're going to want confirmation. But everything around you is going to be the confirmation. You're going to be seeing it and you're going to be like, okay, it makes sense. You understand, like it's going to make a lot of sense, and you won't be able to really act on it, but just accept it. So you'll understand in a minute. But looking at that fact, complex creation, they created us, and it's like, for what? For what? What are we here for? There have been generations of people that lived, hundreds, thousands of years ago. They came, they lived, they died, and for what? What was the point? All this history that we see, people living and dying and, generations, and they come and go. They leave no footprint, no major benefit or contribution to the planet. And the whole thing is, what was their purpose? So before we think about the glitz and glamour, Hollywood and, basketball and everything like that, remember, hundreds of thousands of years, people lived like that. For what point? Why? So it's where the evolutionists get into evolution. And it's one of the reasons why they believe in evolution, because they look at it and they say, well, Had to be evolution. There's no purpose. We just evolved from such and such. And we're just here the same way the animals was here before us. And you look at that and it makes sense. But you have to think about creation and purpose. And we know that's not true when you think about the complexity. There is a far gap from the evolution of, cyanobacteria, which is what they believe, crawled out of the primordial soup, they call it, and dinosaurs and so on. It's a far separation from that development. And then our brain, which is super complex. And then the big one, consciousness, our consciousness, which is far superior than anything that ever existed on this planet, animal wise, that we can prove. And that's the key. That's the one, because we reign supreme in consciousness, and that was given to us for a reason, which we'll get into. So you can't escape that. That's the one. The consciousness part of us is what separates us. And that's something that we would have found in other animals if it was something that was just passed down, or developed over time. And then, the main thing is the genome sequencing of the human body, where we see we make up a bunch of these animals. We have a bunch of the, genes within us. So this is clear creation, not evolution. So we think about those people living thousands of years ago, generations of people came and went. And it's like the only thing that makes sense is if their life was put there to benefit them spiritually. It was a spiritual information or knowledge or something they had to develop, as to the purpose of them being here, because nothing else fits. So we fast forward, we think about, religion, the Bible and everything like that. And it's like you had societies of people that were living this spiritual life. Everything was about spirituality. And we look at how these people live, out in the wilderness. They didn't try to build metropolises and major cities or anything like that. They were spiritual people, in tune with nature, in tune with the animals, in tune with reality. And that's how they live. A Bible believer, a Christian, in order for you to truly follow Christianity, you couldn't live in a city. And as I said many times before, the Bible is the key. It is the greatest book ever written. There's so much in it. And it blows your mind when you understand it. And it's like, why would they give us this book? Because the deeper you get into it, the more you understand. It's there. It's everything they gave us. They put it in that book. It's an amazing book, which by now, when you start comparing it and getting into it, you're starting to see it. You're starting to understand that, wow, this is really it. And it starts to really connect the dots and bring you into the understanding of why religion, why Christianity, why is this stuff dominating? Why has it been here? Even though we can clearly see it's obvious bullshit. What's the point? And when you understand it, then you see it. So the Bible is the key. It's been telling us since the beginning, stay out of the world, stay away from this stuff. It's telling you the cities and stuff, the places we live in at is bad. Don't be there. And this is even before we had cities. So again, when I say it's the agenda of the elite, which is going to be clear, later on, but it's what they knew. The crazy part is, again, it was written so long ago and stuff happening. So don't be with the world. Don't be in the world. Don't do what the world is doing. Stay away from this stuff. Why? What's the point? Old Testament is telling you to follow God. New Testament is telling you to follow Jesus. Same being, God and Jesus. It's telling you to follow Jesus. Don't lose faith. Don't get caught up in this shit. Don't lose faith. Follow Jesus. He is the way, so on and so forth. Jesus is you. Jesus is you. God is you. And all this stuff is telling us it's for what? It's to prepare us for what? The afterlife. So again, if you follow this stuff, then you wouldn't be living in cities. You wouldn't be sinning. You will be living separate from everything that's going on. And you will be walking that way that Jesus wanted you to walk. And it's like, well, can't nobody do that? What is it really talking about? But then you begin to understand what it's talking about. It's talking about exactly that, but in a different way. So you have to understand that this city or this worldly stuff is internal. And it's to prepare you for the afterlife. Everything is preparing you for the afterlife. It's not getting you caught up in this stuff, but it's metaphorical. It's a parable about you. So when you read, this is Matthew 6:19-21. It says, do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Hebrews 13:5. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. 1 John 2:16. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. So even if you are a Bible believer, if you believe in all this stuff, the Bible is telling you clearly. It's saying, I didn't put this stuff here. And excuse me if you hear noise in the background. I think they redoing the pool. The Bible's telling you. God's saying, I didn't put this stuff here. This is not from me. It's not from God for you to consume or for you to have, and all this stuff you're prideful of and everything that you're doing, that's from the world. I didn't put this stuff here for you. This stuff is not your purpose, basically. It's not the point, the reason that you are here. So you're supposed to be following what I told you to follow, which is basically you, when you understand esoterically what it's talking about. All this prideful stuff and this money and everything that we brag and the stuff that we are so happy about doing, the accomplishments, so to speak, it's not what we're here for. So when people say, this is my purpose, I was born to do this, and this is what I was put here for, or God put me here for this, Bible's telling you clear as day, no, I didn't. This is not what you're here for. So everything that we're told to do is a spiritual thing. It's to benefit us spiritually. Colossians 3:2 says, set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. 2 Corinthians 4:18, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. Think about that. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. And think about that. So this unseen world that we can't see, this so-called heaven, the afterlife, we can't see it. Anything that we can see is physical. It has an expiration date. It's going to expire. It's not going to be here forever. The things that we can't see will be here forever. It has always been. We can't see our souls. But when we dream, we see what we see. We could see our entire room. We could see the material things. And what it's trying to get you to understand and entice you when it's talking about have your mansions and your reward is in heaven. That's the thing. Anything you could possibly want in this life, the afterlife you can get. Now, of course, that sounds like what the white man been telling us for a long time. Oh, stay a slave and do what we tell you. When you die, you can have everything. Understand? So to us, we hear that and we want to completely put that out of our minds. But it's proven to us when we dream. Everything is there. And it's not, we're supposed to slave our entire physical life to benefit the white man in his physical life so that we can have a good afterlife. But it's a deep point to this that we'll get into. So think about it. And you have this life and you're supposed to put this work in to benefit your spirit and your soul. And everything that's here is a trap. It's to keep you away from doing that. It's to keep you blinded from your purpose, which is the understanding that you have no purpose, that you're supposed to benefit you in a spiritual way and not in a physical way, because the physical is temporary. You understand? You wouldn't spend the time, why would you spend your entire life building something that you know is going to fall and then miss out on a bunch of other stuff? You're spending your entire life building something that is not going to exist. And we say, okay, well, no, I do this to, I'm going to pass something down to my kids, something that's physical. You're dead and gone, and you wasted your life trying to pass something to somebody that's going to be dead and gone as well. And it's still something that's not going to last forever because our mindset is still focused on the physical. We were spiritual beings, understanding spirituality, but that was a problem, which we'll get into. And we are caught up in the spirit, the whole physicality, not the spirituality part of our existence. So think about it. When you go to church, the sermon is always something physical. They toss in there, stuff they got to do, spiritual stuff. But you can't be having people come to your church and have them praising their death. You understand how depressing would that should be? Every time you come to church, the sermon is about afterlife, death, 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 death. But that's really what he's talking about. But He's not really like that. That's the premise, but he don't want to really touch on it too much because you're not going to want to come and hear that shit. So the sermon is prepared to have to do with your physical life and things you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to get, blessings and, sow your, plant your seeds and reap your harvest and so on and so forth, giving. So he's coming there, and the sermon always has to do with money. It has to do with physical stuff. Oh, well, your boss at your job and people at work, and this is why such and such don't like you, and you hating. Like, they're literally in church these days talking about people hating on you. It ain't even about, the Bible no more. It ain't about really teaching what it is. They talking about people hating on you at work. And, some churches will get into, Black entrepreneurial things, like things that you need to do to grow and be successful. Someone will talk about that. But then you can't really get into that as a preacher because it's worldly stuff. You can't be talking too much about money, which they do. And they got everybody in church fooled and thinking that the reason why you're not blessed is because you're sinning, which they all know they are. So it's instant guilt right there. Well, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. Let me, I'm guilty. Let me give God some money. Or let me, hand some money and hopefully God will bless me and forgive me for not being the Christian I'm supposed to be. And that's why the sermon is geared around material things and all that. So they can make you feel guilty about your lifestyle and the way that you live in, knowing you're not living according to what the Bible says is right before God. So you put money in the plate. And we know most people want to put money in a collection plate to be seen. They want people to see them put that 50 or that 20 in a collection plate. They want to come up there and drop something off to the preacher or drop something off. Because some churches just leave a basket in the corner. They got tired of passing it around.